So in recent years, Ukraine's presence in Swedish cultural spaces has grown significantly. And this panel will highlight the collaborations, artistic exchanges, and success stories that have helped bring Ukrainian voices to Swedish audience. We will hear from individuals who have played a key role in bringing these two cultural landscapes. Moderator of this panel discussion is Iryna Melnychenko. Welcome. Round of applause, please.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to greet our guests today. And just to tell you how we are going to work, first I will present each one separately, and then we'll have, I hope, discussion free, where everyone can express themselves. So at first I want to thank all of you, not only for being here, but for the reason why you are here. And the reason why you are here is because of everything you already done to support Ukraine and help Ukrainian culture to be on the Swedish stages. So our panel is about the success stories, and that's what we are going to talk about. What is success for the culture being presented? How do we measure it? How do we make it work better? And everything related to that. So on the left side, left side from me is Nils Håkanson, a renowned Swedish writer and translator, actually prize-winning writer and translator, who is one of the few people who actually is able to translate from Ukrainian language, Ukrainian, Russian and English. And Nils has translated many screenplays and books, but today we'll talk of the most recent one, Man in the Daylight. That will be a bit later. Nina Röhlcke is the cultural scientist and one of the organizers, founders of artist meetings that will follow today's event. We'll be able to attend artist meetings later, but Nina will tell more about this. And this is the place where many Ukrainian artists can perform actually on the Swedish stage for real, without any additional pressure and mingling, having fun. And actually maybe that's the best way to make people network, because every time we have artistic meetings, it's mingling, chat, open bar, stuff like this. That's very cultural. Next one is Bea. I'm sorry, I need to read your name correctly. Bea Tiherhelm.
That's correct.
You are founder and the manager, I think, of the Gallerias Rikstolvan, and that's the place where artistic residences for artists from Ukraine who could come to Sweden when they needed that the most. And you will tell us more about your project, and that's one more example of real success stories of how Ukrainian culture was presented actually on Swedish stages. Then I need to read that correctly again, Sanne Houby-Nielsen, the director of the Nordiska Museet. And Nordiska Museum was the first one to react to the full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine, and Sanne will tell more about this, but I'm deeply grateful for everything they managed to do in such a short time, starting from fundraising and ending with giving space for Ukrainian children to be able to be educated in Sweden. And the next one is Madeleine Grieve, the editor-in-chief and founder of the Sugartalet journal. And after the annexion of Crimea and the full-scale invasion, Madeleine, your journal helped to present many new names of Ukrainian poets to the Swedish stage, Ukrainian poets and writers.
No.
No.
We already did that for many, many years, 2 decades before the...
And that's amazing
Yes.
story to tell, because everything that actually people can find when they search is the two main not publications, sorry, prints of the journals dedicated in 2014 and 2025.
Yes,
but that's much
right.
less.
But we have other issues before that with poetry and prose from Ukraine.
And I think actually we can start with that. How did you decide to work with Ukrainian literature before it was mainstream in Sweden?
Because we are always searching for things that are unwritten, and we want to see what is left over, what can we introduce, what do people in Sweden, what do they need to know about. We are curious about things that are not obvious for everyone, to introduce new literature, new authors, new artists, and always to be on the edge.
How do you search? I mean, this is one of the most touchy questions for every translator or writer or poet. How can I, not me, but like in general, I being found? How do you search for new names?
Well, that's of course very difficult to say, but you travel, you go out, you go to bars, restaurants, you join young people or people that are doing things. You go to galleries, theaters, and talk to people, and you read a lot. You read foreign newspapers, foreign books, and of course it's also very important to have a good connection with translators. Translators is a very important source for they read a lot, and they give us a lot of tip, and so you need to listen and see. And if you have been in your work for a very long time, you get a little bit used to see what can be fit together, and how to puzzle things.
That almost doesn't leave chance to introverts,
But
who don't go out and
of
choose
course,
work in
there is
home.
other things. You also need a platform where you can introduce, and to have a platform, you need at least some money. As a non-profit organization, 20-tal doesn't have a lot of money, but we have a lot of engagement and very talented people working for us. So we're doing a lot of things, but we need a platform. We need people to work together with, theaters, for our Stockholm International Poetry Festival. It was very important that the Royal Dramatic Theatre invited us to have this big event in their house from 1997. And already 2005, we invited Seri Shadan for the Stockholm International Poetry Festival, together with Halina Krok and Yuri Androkovich. And after that, 2005, we made a tour in Ukraine, in Odessa and different places, Kiev, and together with Swedish authors and Ukrainian authors. Shadan was on that trip too, all over Ukraine.
Madeleine mentioned how important are translators. So my question goes to you right now. How do you choose what to work with?
Well, stuff I just find somehow. Some stuff I mean, as a translator, you always, or at least often, have some kind. You have some person who gives you the opportunity to translate. You have a publisher or. When it comes to this play that we will discuss, there is one important connection between Sweden and Ukraine and Belarus. That's Dmitry Plaks, who works as at Dramatiska Teatern with this project Dramaten.doc, which has introduced a lot of Ukrainian plays during the last 3 years. So that is how I find things to translate. Then of course, even if maybe I like some book that I read, but it's not always that I get to translate it. You have to, of course, find the right publisher for it.
Are you bound by some specific genre?
No, not at all.
Nina, I want to move to you now, so to say, from literature to the artists. How did it start for you to work with artistic meetings, and also how was it connected with TEA, and how did you decide to make this residence?
Yeah, well, actually it was like 2 or 3 years ago. It was in connection to UkraineVision conference. We met with a lot of Ukrainian artists. And me and my colleague Åsa, we work with the international projects in the house. And we wanted to do something for the Ukrainian and artistic community in Stockholm. And we asked them, what do you need? What do you wish for? And they said, we just want to work, and we want to meet Swedish artists to get connected with and to collaborate with. And then we got this idea of making some event that is designed for connecting Swedish and Ukrainian artists. And at the same time, we got to know Rikstolvan and Bea, who had been holding this. You were going to tell about the residencies. So we got in contact with a large collective of playwrights in the Ukraine that we later on decided, wow, we want to make something bigger, build some kind of support system for these people who now have to go and live in different places, but they are a collective. They need to stick together and work continuously. We wanted to do something for those. So we decided to apply for an EU project that we named Triangle for Ukrainian Artists, because we also have a partner in Poland, in Krakow, who is more like into studying how methods and initiatives like ours can be sustainable. So we have these 3 dimensions, and yeah, it started actually when we met in another project, totally different one, and then we said, but we want to work together for the Ukrainian artists. We want to get to know them and what they write.
Tea, can you please tell us more about the residence? Because this is a safe place, I would say so. And when it comes to anything creative and artistic, we tend to think that it's like on the bottom of this pyramid of human needs, while safety is on the top of the. I mean, that's in the reverse, but you understand it. Yeah. So somehow you managed to combine safety with possibility to create in one place. Please tell us more about this.
Yeah, the residence is Rikstolvan. It's in the south of Sweden, on the countryside. It's in a small village with 200 people, almost 150, and it's a very quiet village. And in this, one part of the residence is in this place, and we also have a distance house outside. And it's you can see all the residents that come to us. They say that they feel safe immediately because of the quietness and it's a place to rest, really.
How many people did you manage to invite to the residence during those years?
About 30 artists.
How long
The
can they
residents.
stay?
They can stay, it's different, but they stay between a few weeks and a few months.
Our panel is being broadcasted and recorded, so maybe you can tell for artists who might watch us how exactly they can apply for the residence.
They can just contact us. For now, the residence is for Ukrainian playwrights, but the first year it was more like an emergency residence. So it was all kind of artists that came to us. But I think they spread the word, so they all contacted us.
I know that you have a presentation to show. Would you like to do that right now?
Now?
Yes?
Yes, I can do it. Yeah.
Can you please start with the
cannot
first
see
slide?
it?
Yeah, I can see.
Oh, you see it there, good.
For our online who see that, I suppose they see only the slide. Please tell us what do they see
Yes.
there.
This is Riksholmen, and this is a small village in south of Sweden. And it's started in 2019 as an art hall, and since then we developed it. So today it's a bookshop and art hall, and we also arrange concerts and literature festival. And the residence we started in 2022 in the spring. And next, this is the distant house, and the restaurants. Next.
How many rooms are there?
Sorry?
How many rooms? How many people can stay at the same time?
About 8 or 10. Yeah, it depends on how many children and
Oh, they
about
can come with
families.
children?
Of course they can, yeah.
Wow.
We had a lot of children in the residence. Next. So in the spring of 22, we decided to invite Ukrainian artists for the summer show. And at the same time, we were contacted by Mikael Nydahl, who's a translator, and Kieran Klimovsky, who is a playwright, and both of them are based in Skåne. And they asked us to, if we could create a project together. And the project would include a residence for playwrights and translation of the plays, and to build an archive with Ukrainian plays, with the goal to make the theaters stage the plays to spread Ukrainian culture in Sweden.
So
Next.
this is the installation.
And in August, we have a literature festival every year. So this was the first reading we had. We dedicated one day to Ukraine, and we had a lot of readings of newly translated plays. Next. And then we invited Natalka Block, who is the playwright, for the festival. And she was the first one who told us about Theatre of Playwright, who is a network in Kiev or in Ukraine with playwrights who write modern drama. And as you can see, it's a typical Swedish summer in Skåne as well.
That's anti-advertising.
Next. And then we invited Andrei Bondarenko, who is one of the founders of Theatre of Playwrights. And here is Andrei and Natalka Block at a reading in Malmö Konsthall. And if you are staying tonight, you will meet Andrei on stage here, and he will tell you more about Theatre of Playwrights. Next. Here's a photo exhibition. The photographer Alyona Grom, she stayed in a residence for about 3 months and produced an exhibition. She lived in Bucha, and when the invasion came, she started to document the neighborhood. Next. This is another kind of stage. It was a film screening in Lund of Natalka Foroshpit's film Bad Roads. And here is the artist talk after the film was screened. Next. And during the year, we had like several concerts and exhibitions and performances, and we had one exhibition of Alexander Shekmenev in Rikstolvan. And we also had the opportunity to show the exhibition in Sergels Torg, just behind us. Next. This is a film shooting.
In the residence?
In the residence, yes. Natalka Block was supposed to shoot her film in the spring of 22, but because of the invasion, the whole film team was split up. So with some help from Film i Skåne, we could gather the team again and make the movie in the residence. So this is the top floor in the residence. Mm-hmm. And next.
Yeah,
this is an article
about
from the
shooting.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Next. Oh, this is spring 23 at Scenkonstbiennalen. It's Natalka Foroshpit, Natalka Block, and Andrei Bondarenko. And it was a reading with their plays on stage with actors from Stockholm Stadsteatern. And here is Göteborg Stadsteater. So finally, in spring 24, the first long play was staged ever, I think, in Sweden. It was Bad Roads by Natalka Foroshpit. So we reached the goal after a few years.
Well, sometimes screenplays are being written for much longer time, so that's amazing that you achieved so much during those 2 years. And I wanted to make a transition about safety, transition to Sanne, I mean, about the safe places, but I also noticed the photo exhibition that you had, and I know that Nordiska Museum also had the photo exhibition for Ukrainian artists. And I would love to now to pass the word to you for your story and your short presentation about how Nordiska Museet has helped.
Thank you so much. I was very taken in by what I've heard so far from all of you, and having also lived 10 years in Lund, in Skåne, I can really imagine how important the residence has been. Well, where to start? Perhaps I should mention that I was born in Denmark and I've been living in Sweden since '89. So I'm one of those with a mixed identity. My children are born here and they're not here, so I can tell you they speak lousy Danish. Why is this important? Maybe because I think perhaps Danes are a bit impulsive and sometimes a bit naive, and we tend to be very emotional. And I think, and then maybe I should also mention that I have a background as a classical archaeologist, and that means that on my bucket list has always been to go to the Crimea, to go to Odessa to see the museums and so forth. When the invasion so suddenly took place, I think my immediate reaction was a total shock, actually, like everyone. And then it soon, you immediately think, what can I do? And then I was approached No, sorry, I think I'm getting the data a bit wrong. I think the immediate reaction was to try to do something for our sister museum in Kyiv. The Nordiska Museum is a cultural historical museum, and the National Museum in Kyiv has similar collection to ours, and the director happens to speak fluently Swedish, as is a Viking specialist, Fedia and Röhlcke. I mean, the immediate reaction was to, as I said, how can we help? The Nordiska Museum is a foundation, and that means that we have a certain freedom which the national museums that are directly under the state run, we have a little bit more freedom. So we could actually launch start collecting money for the museum in Kyiv.
Almost 2 million kroner.
Sorry?
You collected almost 2 million kroner.
Yes, I will have to consult my. You will see it on the PowerPoint. Yeah, I can't remember the exact.
Actually, we can start showing.
Okay, that. Maybe we should. Yes, show the PowerPoint. I can take the next one. You will now see several slides that show you on a very concrete level what the Nordiska Museum did in the very beginning of the invasion, at a very early point in March 22 and in April. And one of the things was that we activated a network. We are part of a Nordic museum director network, and we were able to activate that network and simply make to condemn the invasion using a hashtag stand with Ukraine and the Blue Shield. So you will find this statement at our homepage, and I can just mention a couple of lines from that statement. We, the directors of the National Cultural, Historical and Archaeological Museums of Denmark, Finland, Greenland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, the Åland Islands and the Faroe Islands, strongly condemn the unprovoked Russian invasion of the democratic and free Ukraine. We mourn human losses and we fear irreparable damages to cultural heritage, and so and more statements. This is the first time that Nordic museum directors go out in this way. We have met each year. We meet, in one of the Nordic countries, and we have nice dinners and talks, and about collections and challenges within museums and so forth. But to suddenly activate colleagues around this issue has meant really a lot to us and hopefully also to Ukraine.
Oh, it did.
And we were really very quick, and it felt so good to suddenly this network, that we have, was really a collegial network. The challenges we have been talking about for years is nothing to compare to what was now at stake. And to suddenly be able to activate this was fantastic, and a very strong statement coming from the Nordic countries. And as you know, today, the Nordic countries, what we need to do is to stand together. We are the strongest union. We have the best economy. We have the most developed democracy. We are really big. We are really great, but we have to stand together.
And really
So this was fantastic, and we can take the next one. And then, as I said, we also initiated to collect money from for Swedish museums, and Swedish museums reacted immediately. I think it just took a few days. Then I think all Swedish museums had really switched money for this trust. And the next one. Later on, we started to collect stories about the war in Ukraine. We have started in our museum since some years back a rather active way of collecting digitally to sort of get in stories from people about topics that are really up and burning at the moment. So we also collect the stories about the corona and things like that. And now we collect the stories about the war in Ukraine. And again, you can find most of these are available on the internet. And almost 600 people responded to this. And this kind of documentation has proved to be very important for many reasons. Many scholars make use of this because we reach out very broad, not only in Sweden but also in the Nordic countries. And really a lot of people not only respond, but they take their time to reflect the questions, so they are valuable. I can take the next one. And then I was approached by Hilson from the Novara and the Beredskapsløftet. And he made a phone call and asked me if we could house a center for children, an activity center. And for those of you who know the museum in Djurgården here in Stockholm, you will know it's a very big building. So what do you say? You say, yes, of course. Of course we have a space. So very quickly we were able to house an activity center from April 19 to end of June in 2022. So every day children of various ages from refugee parents would come to the museum and have education by Ukrainian teachers. And I have to say, I've never seen so well-behaved children. Wow, absolutely amazing. And it was a kick for the museum. Just imagine suddenly this stable museum used to do our normal routines. Suddenly we had these crowds of children speaking their own language, and at the same time we knew that they had most likely very traumatic things to carry. So it was amazing. I can only say that I hope the children learned something. We learned a lot from that. So the next one. Then we took part in a joint collection of sending packaging and protection materials to our colleagues in Ukraine. It was an initiative by the National Museum here in Stockholm, and we took part in that. And again, it opened our eyes that for these practical things, suddenly it's so necessary with heat, with, you know, very practical things like packaging, storage, all this that you take for given, for granted in your everyday, suddenly it's important and you send it away. And again, I can only say I hope it was important for Ukraine. It was important for us. We have learned so much. So next slide. And then we invited, of course, our dear colleague Fedia Androcek up from Kyiv, and he gave a talk about how is it to be director of a museum that you don't know if it survives until the next day. And it's something that really stays with me because of the way he and his staff stood behind this museum, all the risks they went through, and never for one day failed to put the museum in the very center. And they managed to do exhibitions, new exhibitions, and people came to see these exhibitions in the middle of an ongoing war. It's extremely impressive. And we learned a lot about how to handle crisis when it arises so suddenly, what to do and not to do. Enormously important, I would say. And then the next one. We had different kinds of sponsor event, and again the driving force here is really Beredskapslyftet and its leader Fredrik Hillesson. And we had a fantastic collaboration with Beredskapslyftet and Fredrik, who's also in charge of Novara. And full house in the Nordiska Museum in these evenings, which are really to get together sponsors for various products and things and help, all from transport vehicles to Ukraine to other sorts of help, education for specialist tasks and so forth. And can take the next one. And one of the results was that the Beredskapslyftet could arrange for the purchase of an ambulance, as you can see, which has been bomb struck from Ukraine, and that was exhibited in front of our museum, but also other places in Stockholm. And is there one more? And then we had the photo exhibitions with various Ukrainian photographers. And you can see the names here. I'm afraid I would pronounce the names very lousy, so it's better you just read them. But the common theme was war and how it affects you. And I think there's one more slide. Yeah, look, that's me. And receiving a very valuable gift, namely a print of the children's hands from the Ukrainian Activity Center. And if you come to our museum, you will see it hangs at the very entrance. On the ground floor, and every day I pass, I get this feeling. It was very strong, yes.
I feel extremely grateful for everything every one of you did. I have no idea how the time passes.
Oh, I probably spoke too long.
No, I mean, that's a lot of things to share and lots of things to acknowledge, and we couldn't skip it. All I wanted to say is that I hoped we'll have less rushed discussion, but now, since time passed, I want to jump into maybe the most difficult question regarding culture and economy, because we all know that culture contributes society in many ways, including creative new jobs and workspaces, directly and indirectly. And when we talk about the Ukrainian culture, there are also examples like playwrights being staged, like actresses and actors getting roles in them, like when museums have Ukrainian speaking audio guides set, it gives job to translators and to actors who make voice recordings for that. I want to talk about how do you see the contribution of what you do and what Ukrainians do, Ukrainian artists, playwrights and writers and so on, into Swedish culture in the prism of economy. Does it work? Does it contribute? Do we have means to make it work better? Whoever wants to answer first.
Well, if you come to literature, we got some support from Swedish Institute already from the beginning, so we could go to Ukraine, several travels, and make workshops there with Swedish authors. And then we could also invite Ukrainian writers to Stockholm, and that is what we have done since around 2005, and many of them we introduced in our magazine. It was not so many authors published in Sweden. It was only Oksana Saborsko, one book. It was Shadan, 2 books. But when you read them in magazines, and especially, it's sad to say, but before the Russian invasion 2002, the visibility of Ukrainian culture and literature in Sweden was much limited. And because we were working for such a long time without very much attention for the Ukrainian literature, we noticed this increased activity very well, because we were the only one where you could find texts of these Ukrainian authors. We had introduced only in one of the issues, we had 25 contemporary authors. So the theaters and the newspapers and the magazine and the publishing houses, they connected us to have information, to have text. And I would say some of them we invited in 2014 for the stage, like Juba Jakovic. She is now Jakimchuk. She's now published in Swedish with a poetry book. And many of the publishing houses, like Ersatz, has published a lot of books now. Julia Ilyusha is one of the Ukrainian authors. We picked about 14 short stories in this issue. And now she has a book. It came yesterday. My Women is the name of the book, and it was published yesterday.
By the way,
by
while you are holding the journal, everyone who is interested in buying that, you can do this. You can buy this journal with Ukrainian authors translated into Swedish. So that's one of few possibilities actually to learn about Ukrainian writers in Swedish.
So I mean, we have to, I mean, we can introduce, and that is what we all can help with. And now the big publishing houses are publishing, like Julia Ilyusha, and it goes very well for her. And she's we had her here at Bonnier Konsthall, and people were very fond of her when they heard her. I had an interview with her at stage, and Stina Ekblad read her text, and so Bonnier Alba, they really wanted her. Romanus Selling is the Bonnier company. And in this autumn, she will come to the Gothenburg Book Fair to introduce the whole
That's a success
book.
story.
That's good.
You mentioned
Nice.
the workshops you have been doing. Are they still ongoing? Are they in the process? Swedish writers in Ukraine?
We're not having one right now, but we are planning to follow up and do more workshops.
I'm just having the practical question of how Ukrainian writers can find out about that. How can they apply?
Well, we invite, so you not really apply. And we have we have a big network because we started with it's so long time ago, and we also had a very good friend, Lev Ristik, that was Swedish speaking, and he introduced Swedish poetry in Lviv. Unfortunately, he doesn't live anymore. But we knew he helped us a lot in the 2010, and we met all his friends, so poets and authors and contacts and grandmothers and everyone. And after you have a network and you know more about who can be together with this Swedish author.
So it's still a closed circle. Only people who know other people can find the possibility then.
Yeah, many people now in Ukraine, they know about us and the issues we made. And Ostap Slovinsky is coming tomorrow.
Yes,
we know him very well, and since 2011 or something. And well, I think they know about us, and we have our homepage. So, and we worked a lot with Röhlcke in Usserud. He helped us with some of the issues. And he was also here a couple of years ago and at the Stockholm International Poetry Festival.
Thank you, Madeleine.
So we are in contact all the time. On Facebook every day I am messing with Ukrainian authors every day.
Thank you. I've seen Sanne, you wanted to add something regarding the economic way of contribution.
Yeah, well, it is maybe not directly related to what you took up, but I think that if I was to summarize the impact on Sweden from a museum point of view, I think it's really 3 levels. After the invasion, I think museum business changed completely, in completely the same way, more or less, as on the political level. Before Ukraine, nobody, almost, I tend to exaggerate, but for the point of discussion, almost nobody talked about Nordic collaboration or unified Europe or all that. After, or NATO. Soon after, Sweden was part of NATO, everybody talked Nordic collaboration, and Europe, you have to stay together. On a museum level, the same thing has happened. Suddenly, we saw each other from a completely different way. We collaborated naturally in, as I said earlier, in the Nordic, among the Nordic countries, but also on a European level. We started suddenly not looking at each other as, you're from that country or that country, but as a museum colleague. What happened in Kyiv and in all other museums and in cultural institutes in Ukraine could also have happened to us. And so it completely changed our way of thinking, and it has given us and also on a governmental level, suddenly we were seen in a way we have never been seen before. Even interest in our storage facilities and security questions. Imagine who cared before, but now suddenly we got this focus. So it's completely changed. And then I think on a personal level, we have all changed in the same way. I think we look at each other as colleagues and not as people from different regions or countries, but we are suddenly colleagues. And so I can only say I have not been to Ukraine, as I said earlier. It's still on my bucket list. But I really hope that that whatever we have done here has had a good effect in Ukraine, and I think we should thank you for all the things you have changed here, really.
When you'll be able to visit your sister museum, you'll see that it's located in one of the most beautiful districts in Kiev, Andriivsky Uзвіз.
Yeah, but I also want to go to Crimea. Yes. Yeah.
We all want to go to Crimea. I think that's the dream Ukrainians share, all of us. Nils, I want to ask you, since you work directly with actually making people be able to get jobs, not maybe jobs, but contracts in Sweden. So how did you notice the thing has changed for Ukrainian culture?
Well, I'm not sure I've been able to get other people so many contracts, but one thing that has changed immensely, if you go back maybe 5 or 10 years, is the fact that since the last World War, Ukraine and Ukrainian literature, culture was always in the shadow of Moscow. That also affected the way we did, or rather did not, read Ukrainian literature. Because we had, since we were looking at Ukraine from the perspective of Moscow, we thought that, well, it's about the same thing as Russia. That perspective has changed now, and it has changed forever.
And I'm sorry for interrupting, but you just led me to the question I was wanting to ask for such a long time. Since each of you has been has met Ukrainian culture in person and deeply, did you notice any narratives that now you can actually recognize them? Or like, oh yeah, that's typical Ukrainian narrative, speaking about something. Or that is what distinguishes Ukrainian narratives?
No, I mean, the situation since the period when we have been interested in Ukrainian literature has been so short, and it has been a war time all the time. So of course, war is a theme, and as yet we haven't been able to get by that really. I mean, that will take some time before, and we will, evolve some actual cultural connections between Sweden and Ukraine. But now, for the last year, the situation has been more acute. So then, of course, as a translator, I see things, but in the language but it's more. I mean, it's not. You asked for the stylistics and so, but yeah.
But Madeleine, you have been working with Ukrainian authors before the war. Have you noticed something that distinguishes the literature from other countries?
Well, I wouldn't say before the war, because it was obvious from the beginning
2013.
that the authors was writing about oppression from Russia and the fear of war. Oksana Saboshko wrote a very special essay for our issue in 2014, and that issue we started to work with already in 2011, because it takes very long time to make huge issues. And she wrote about the loneliness that the Ukrainians have had, 100 years of loneliness, of solitude, and I would say the struggle for surviving, and the struggle for and find and keep the Ukrainian identity, and that is what the subjects are about, and it was from the beginning there in the literature.
I think most of the students and children at school would say that that pretty much sums up 90% of Ukrainian literature, which is of course not correct, but that's what people learn a lot.
There's a lot of humor in the Ukrainian literature and attitude, because they are survivors and have to struggle for their
Coping mechanism being
existence.
Nina, would you like to add something? I can see that I am jumping from topic to topic, and that's difficult to follow, but I still want to ask regarding the economics. And
I was thinking about that. I mean, one could think that an institution like Kulturhuset, Stadsteatern would be able to hire more Ukrainian artists, but since we are like a totally city-financed institution in producing shows in Swedish, the language barrier is of course there, and therefore again the translators that give us books and poems and drama in Swedish language, for me personally, it's so much more effective to be able to read it in my own language than English, for instance. And that is so important. So that's what we can do. We can adopt, we can buy books in our children's libraries. We have lots and lots of Ukrainian books in Ukrainian, but also translated ones. We have some people working there, reading in Ukrainian for Ukrainian children, for instance. And we, in our networking meetings, Ukraine Artistic Meeting, we also always have hire Ukrainian artists. Of course, everyone gets paid properly, stuff like that. Also for preparations, because the whole concept is to be able to be a freelancer as an artist and continue working when you come here. So that is the actual idea of why when we leveled up, we met 2 years ago, we thought we want to level up this project, not only residencies, not only translations, but also to disseminate all the texts. So in these Ukraine artistic meetings, you are cordially invited to stay on to today's Ukraine artistic meeting at 7 o'clock we start. We always invite publishers, directors, other actors, people from the whole cultural community to connect with the Ukrainian and Swedish artists. And it's going to be the 6th edition tonight. And I already have heard some stories, people met at our meetings and haven't started to get to work together, find a job, got published, maybe could go to residence. So I think I strongly believe in this networking concept, because it's all about relations, and in an economy that is really declining in the culture field, one must find other ways. So one part of our project, the EU project, is also knowledge building around finding grants, how to apply for money from the Swedish structures, and also, as you say, Swedish authorities have given more and more funds for these Ukrainian projects. So we actually have gotten additional funding now from Swedish Institute and also from the Arts Council, Swedish Arts Council, to continue with this project we do. So all these little things make it bigger, the whole community and network and working together.
You mentioned the language barrier, and that's absolutely true. But the good news that I want to share is that we made the digital catalog of translations of first chapters Ukrainian books in different genres into Swedish.
Really cool.
Last year it was into English, our first try. This year it's into Swedish. We are trying to raise the next generation of translators who'd be able to translate, and we will send that to you. So if you want to make yourself familiar with new Ukrainian authors, new Ukrainian names, you'll be able to read
That's
it.
really good because, again, translators are so crucial, and translations with quality. Yes.
I can see that we don't have much time left at all, but I need to ask this question. What do you think is crucial for both sides, from us as Ukrainians, from you as people who represent Swedish institutions, to keep up working together, being interested to each other even after the war ends, and to contribute into each other's well-being?
Well, when the war ends, we can go to Ukraine, and I mean, that's when it starts, the contacts.
That's a good plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually what we are aiming for too. We want to build some structures that will make it easy for us to work together in the future, like some very natural thing to work together with the Ukrainian colleagues.
Yeah, I agree. That has been the aim all the time, that we are making projects that will work for itself after the war has ended.
The same thing in a way. I think we need to really inventorize what we have been doing and the results, and how can we keep on exploring and expanding the networks or whatever we have established as collaboration. And because there's such a broad variety, I have spoken very narrowly about the Nordic Museum, what we have been doing, but there are so many other things that have taken place, and I see that Stiftelsen is here, so I have to add also the research that has been started in archaeological material, which will live on and hopefully spread. That kind of initiatives will spread. And on the whole, I think that we really need to learn from what has happened to make knowledge-based, to expand research and make sure that we don't forget what is facts and what is fiction. There's a little bit too much at the moment. And history is a very, very shaky business, which we have just learned. You can rewrite history in no time.
And museums are one of few places to preserve history the way it's
I think there we have a lot to do, to not forget what has happened, but to really keep on working to secure fact-based history writing.
Thank you. Madeleine?
It's history and culture is the most important for connecting to each other. The lack of that we didn't know anything about Ukrainian culture around Europe has been very dangerous for the country, and so it's very important that we are working with culture and thinking of history. and it's time now to mobilize all force we can do against stupidness and fake news and things. We really need researchers and historians and culture and contemporary culture to work, keep the good work, but also start new projects and we have to wake up. No sleep.
That's why we are here. Thank you. I believe that's time for questions from the audience, if you have some. If you don't, I have more.
One question.
Hey, I want to ask you if you know, if you think about how Swedish culture introduced it in Ukraine, because I know a lot of books translated into Ukraine for this year, first time. And I think we are a good place to make money for Sweden.
Is the question for me?
No, it's
To me?
for all.
Oh, okay. Actually, I can start answering because I know, being a Ukrainian, that there were not so many Swedish authors known, but Astrid Lindgren is iconic, and for every Swedish person who I met, that was a huge surprise that basically every child in Ukraine grew up on the books about Carlson, on the book about Pippi Longstrump. So this is part of the Swedish culture we know. But when the war, where the full-scale invasion started and people, Ukrainians, wanted to be seen more in Sweden, I've seen a person asked, like, why would we want that if we don't know much about Swedish authors? That made me actually Google who is translated recently. And of course, that Frederick Backbader, we know about him. That's, oh my God, that's not Frederick. I mean, I mixed up the author, I'm sorry. Burn Island, who wrote? Beckman, yeah, Beckman. I'm sorry. I mean, I wrote several of his books and I love him totally, but I mixed up the name. That's true. We need to have better collaboration with translating into Swedish, but that, I'm sorry, into Ukrainian from Swedish, but that also means that we need more people who would learn language, and that will also make a new generation of translators. So I absolutely agree about that, and we lack in this a lot. Yeah, I believe I answered as much as I could. Okay, then I thank you all for being here again. I'm sorry that we weren't able to speak about the controversy about the screenplay, but I will harass you about that later. And thank you so much for coming. Meet you at the next panel.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this engaging discussion. Thanks to all the panelists, thanks to our moderator. Your work is helping to ensure that Ukrainian stories are told, heard, and celebrated across the borders. As a small token of appreciation, we have a gift for each of you.
We have it. And
yes, and please, give them another round of applause.